Today we're going to be reviewing Critical Role's Call of the Netherdeep from the DM perspective, running Chapter 1. I just want to say, first of all, how amazing this book and campaign is. We are running it currently on our Twitch and YouTube, and it's one of the best campaigns that I've run so far. It's absolutely fun. If you're looking for an intriguing story with a lot of mystery, with an extreme amount of depth, I highly recommend this one. So I just wanted to start off with Chapter 1 from the DM perspective, some do's and don'ts of what to look at. First off, the rival party. The rival party has a very complex wishes and wants that they kind of are looking through, and you kind of have to figure out where they're trying to go, who they're talking to. Are they mad at this person now? Are they not? There is a Reddit thread that has a bunch of, it's a Call of the Netherdeep mega thread that has a whole bunch of tools that you can use. One of these tools I highly recommend is a spreadsheet to track all of the things that are going on. I think that it was helpful trying to make sure that you kind of keep a sense of who's happy with who, because each character can also have their own opinions. My next tip would probably be, don't try to run all 5 rivals at the same time. It's extremely overwhelming, and if you give each one their own voice, it's going to be difficult to keep track of who's talking. I recommend I picked Aojabe to be the lead. And then I would have moments where some parties would shine. I had Irvin Waistwalker appear every once in a while. I had some of the other ones appear. Forget the names off the top of my head. But it's really good. Good to just have them appear briefly for a moment, so that way you can kind of pull them in. For character creation, I don't think that it's necessary that all of them have to really be from the same area. I had my players kind of piece together what they wanted, and I fit it into the story wherever it goes. It made it a little bit more easy to kind of like walk around some of the issues that was happening. So the first start of the adventure for this one, if you choose not to do a pre-adventure to this one, is one where we are looking at a festival. And in this festival, we have multiple 10 locations that we could go to, and they can go in any order. Now, I thought my players would kind of naturally gravitate towards one area, and they ended up actually diverging completely and running towards like the 5th area that I thought they would go to. So being able to be flexible is important, and kind of having a cliff notes of, okay, here's this location, I want to make sure that when they come here, this happens. There are some cause and effects that happen after they go to a certain event. Maybe they go here. So maybe extrapolating those cause and effects out of there and putting those into a sidebar or some notation that you have, so that way when those people kind of, maybe they go out of order, you could still have the cause and effects happen, but maybe it's happening in a different location than the book says. And that just kind of helps kind of alleviate some of the pain. They get medals, which is an amazing thing. So definitely having if you're using a virtual tabletop, but having those medals in some type of location where you kind of send them the information, let them know, hey, this is what's happening, and have them see what's happening with the medals, because there's a lot of really cool effects that those have too. And creating an environment is really key. There is a lot of stuff happening. There's 10 locations, there's battles, they go from pie eating contests. I'm trying not to ruining it. I mean, this is a DM guide, so players beware. But you know, as you kind of go through some of the events, focusing on creating the NPC for that event. So for the pie eating contest, we have Agatha Silverspoon. Having a little bit of a markdown of who that person is, and each of the people that are running each of several events helps you cordon off the little areas, so it feels like a small little pocket. I also think that it's really helpful to have kind of an encounter table. So as you're going from event to event, maybe you roll a d20 and you get to see a little bit of the festivities happening, really bringing the players into the environment as to what's happening, what's going on, and getting them into the spirit of the festival. Keeping track of time wasn't something that I did per se, but it is something that you could do if you're looking to kind of put stress on the team to make sure that they're proceeding in a logical amount. and not dilly-dallying around the contests. But it depends if your party really wants to go around and do each single event, or if they want to make sure that they're just kind of having fun and not really worried about time. So there's a lot of different possibilities you can do as far as timekeeping goes. Another really fun thing that this adventure does, and it's specifically chapter 1, is kind of get the players familiar with each of the rival party members. And so I think another really good thing to do, as you proceed down, you won't see the rivals in every single chapter, but at least having that moment where you can really deep dive in one event. Say they go to the pie eating contest, and that's where they meet Irvin Wastewalker. Perhaps that moment is where you really flesh out that character and introduce some of that. You can make those light encounters, or at least give them a little bit of flavor. I think the flavor is also good because it does allow for you to give the players an option to interact with some of the rivals and see which ones they like, because the different party members might gravitate towards different people. I know Maggie was one that my party kind of gravitated to, and so I made them appear more often throughout the rest of the campaign. And one of my players fell in love with AO, and they started dating. So also, of course, bringing up AO as a team lead, but creating those spaces where you can really go through and add extra insight for the party members and for you as the DM to know which ones the players kind of gravitate towards, helps you help plan the rest of the events as well. As you get towards the end, there's kind of the scene where they kind of pool all together. So as the DM, keeping track of, maybe you want to run this in 1 or 2 sessions, keeping track of when you want to pull the characters together and make sure that you're ready to start the next move. And that moment, I definitely recommend that you kind of do a call, what's the right word? Just kind of like a scream into the abyss, as this kind of people come call in and they get alerted to come back to the town center to make sure that people are ready to proceed with what's happening next. Then the second half of chapter 1 is around the Emerald Grotto, and this is a race between the rival party and the party that you have. And this involves keeping track of rounds. So make sure that you have a pen and paper out, you track the rounds properly, and don't be too nice. I made the mistake that I was a little too nice at the beginning because I thought that it was going to be way harder, but it's pretty well balanced. And so making sure that you're tracking, okay, well, you're spending a lot of time here, this is going to consider a round. And don't tell the players, because there are 3 different types of outcomes depending on how many runs that are happening. And if you tell the players, they might be encouraged to rush through, and allow the players to proceed at a pace that seems right, because it is a race and they know that it's a race, but allow the players to express themselves as they go forward while they're doing this race. Once they get through, there's 2 different paths, and kind of keep track of what's going on each path. You will have to know each one because you never know what happens, and making sure that whatever happens in one of the chambers, you are kind of have your notes written down as to what you should do. I did allow a lot of interesting types of ways to get through obstacles. I know that there were some weeds in the way of one, some seaweed that was kind of blocking up. They had to make some dexterity checks to get through. One of my players actually cut the weeds down. So allowing that flexibility to get through the obstacles in a unique way should definitely be welcomed, and you should allow that at your table. As they get through the different parts of the Emerald Grotto, they're going to end up at the last spot, which is E10, E11. And in there's a shark running around with a spear inside of it. And this moment is a very defining moment in the campaign. And I think that it sets the tone for the rival parties extremely so, because the rival parties have the chance to actually fight with or against, and as it's a race, there is this motivation to get through as fast as possible. I think it's best to allude to a small crack at the southern entrance where you see a little bit of a shining light, and allow the players to know that perhaps what they're looking for is somewhere down there. Give them insight checks. So as they're kind of fighting off both either the rivals and the shark, and they are going through this tense moment, there's this space that they need to get to first to get to where they need to be. and making sure that when they get there, they get rewarded with the vision that they get. This does have multiple outcomes. I think that this is an amazing campaign because there are multiple ways that things could go, because the rivals do have a chance to get to the obstacle first, through to the reward at the end of the race first. And so making sure that you are incentivizing and making your players want to get there as fast as possible is extremely key. I had a lot of fun with this chapter in specific. It sets a lot of tone, and I think that if you're running the adventure with a lot of new players, it might be a little difficult to get everyone to come together and start role playing in an easy way. And so creating this kind of festival lightheartedness allows the players to introduce themselves, followed by a deep race, which also forces the players together. So if you're running with a new table, I think that the pre-adventures aren't necessarily going to help in creating an environment to make your players come together more cohesively. I think the first chapter does a really good job with that as well. The only thing you kind of have to stumble around is getting the players on the same team for the race, and perhaps you kind of have them start together, or perhaps you have, instead of teams signing up for the race, perhaps it's just individuals that caught interest of the town chief. And so there's multiple ways you can kind of go through a lot of this stuff. It's very well written, and yeah, I think that's kind of just my 2 cents on how to run chapter 1 a little bit more flawlessly, and make sure that you're prepared as a DM. If you liked this helpful tip, please make sure to give a like and subscribe, and we will see you next Tuesday for our live campaign.